just using it kind of day in and day out isn't enough. You need to have a little bit of a strategy around where are you going to basically deploy it? How will people, kind of go through AI transformation? Then you get to the harder parts, which is do I get my data into it? A lot of times people right now are like, I'm all about AI. And now when I really want to use it, getting data into AI is quite challenging as well. So, it's like a whole bunch of different things popping up. And so you really have to have a degree of kind of courage to just jump off that cliff is what we talk about. And that's what I think holds back a lot of people right now who haven't done it.
Welcome to Under the Hood.
And welcome back to Under the Hood for our next episode in Series 4 as we drive powerful growth in AI for 2025. It seems everybody's talking about AI with a little touch of avatars as well. And then, of course, HubSpot, hence the shirt, is across everything we're going to talk about. So we're going to delve into a lot more of AI and practical uses for AI. We're not going to spread a whole bunch of new stuff that you have to go away and research. We've done the research for you, and we're going to share that with you. We're going to help you cut through the hype of AI, which is always the big thing. And we'll also show you how we're using it at Salted Stone here as well. So welcome along. My name is Tony Eades, co-founder, chief strategy officer for Salted Stone. We're a HubSpot elite partner, hence why I get a t-shirt, I think. I've just got to hang on to this because there's not a lot of these things going around, but it's good to have you along. The sales and marketing show that goes under the hood of the latest tech. We also look at tools and trends to help you work just that little bit smarter, and obviously that's why AI is doing the best thing. So let me introduce our guest. First up, joining us for the very first time, even though she's normally behind the scenes, is the lovely Mel.
Hi, thanks, Tony. Yes, I'm far more comfortable behind the scenes. I'm Melanie Phelps-Chevik. I'm the Regional Director for APAC for Salted Stone, and I'm really excited to be joining you on Under the Hood.
And I'm excited that you're joining us, but slightly more excited that Nicholas Holland is joining us all the way from the good USA. He stayed up just that little bit later for us tonight, although it's not getting too late, I suppose. And it's his birthday. Happy birthday and welcome, Nicholas Holland.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate it.
Do you want to just do a quick intro for those that I think everyone on the planet knows you, but do you want to do a quick intro?
Sure. So my name's Nicholas Holland. I am a senior vice president here at HubSpot in the product org. I, for the past 7 years, was the GM of the marketing and content hub product lines, kind of growing them from around 400 million to 1.5 billion. And then most recently, I took over all of HubSpot's AI efforts. And so now I'm the head of AI.
Wow, what a great title that is.
Yeah, super exciting.
And we are speaking to the real Nicholas Holland and not some crazy avatar or AI driven. It'd be nice if you had one of those.
That's right. No doubt. I always like the repetitive motions where it's like, hey, honey, how are you?
That's right. Yeah, maybe we start doing that. No one will ever know the difference. So let's kick off as we like to with a few statistics. So, fear is being replaced, I think, by confidence. Almost half, they say here in the latest stats I've seen, of marketing leaders have invested in AI tools, which is good for them and their teams. AI adoption has surged in sales as well, like working with sales teams as we do here at Sorted Stone, from 24% back in 23 to 43% last year, and I'm sure that's going to grow more.
Yeah, with nearly 75% of marketers believe AI will become a workplace staple in the coming years.
Well, many businesses are now moving away from the piecemeal approach of just touching this and touching that, and plenty of others, although haven't even started yet. So, in the last episode, we spoke of reasons why business leaders and organizations probably haven't started, but we'd love to hear from you, Nicholas, on why do you think people are out there when everybody's speaking about AI? What are they doing when they haven't even got in? What's the reasons, you think?
There are a bunch of things that we're seeing with our customers, and it runs the gamut. But I think probably first and foremost for those who are still not dealing with AI, there is a current analysis paralysis that's happening. You see a lot of people wondering, where do I start? What do I do? The second thing that happens is we've had, for the last 2 decades, this kind of shadow IT problem that's been popping up where people bring in their own technology, their own tools, and this becomes sometimes a headache for a company if a tool's brought in that the company doesn't know about, and then there's turnover. You have data that's in silos, you have logins that are not transitioned, and so it's a little bit of a pain that most of the employees don't think about, but the leaders do. Then you get to this last part, which is AI itself is got a lot of skepticism around it. You've got, too much hype. So therefore you have people buying a lot of tools that don't deliver. You have too much proliferation. This is something we even see at HubSpot where, there's so many different flavors of these AI tools. And because there's not like a sound strategy to them, you have, across one department, you might have bought 4 different tools that all do somewhat of the same, task. So you see an explosion of kind of cost that can't be really turned into ROI. And then you get into the last part, which is when you finally decide that you're going to have, I'm going to do AI. I'm gonna really adopt it and make it for people don't even have a playbook to how to go about it. So, finally they said, well, I'm gonna go with ChatGPT. Now what do I do? And you start to learn pretty quickly, like with any tool, just buying it, just using it kind of day in and day out isn't enough. You need to have a little bit of a strategy around where are you going to basically deploy it? How will people, kind of go through AI transformation? Then you get to the harder parts, which is do I get my data into it? That's a lot of parts. I don't know if you see that, Tony
Mm.
and Mel, but like a lot of times people right now are like, oh, I'm all about AI. And now when I really want to use it, getting data into AI is quite challenging as well. So, it's like a whole bunch of different things popping up. And so you really have to have a degree of kind of courage to just jump off that cliff is what we talk about. And that's what I think holds back a lot of people right now who haven't done it.
I think the thing you mentioned there, just quickly, just touching on that, is that there's so many things out there on AI adoption in different types of versions of the same thing. Like take video editing, for example. Like how do you choose it? I don't know how many, let's just call it 20, 30, 50, all offering the same thing. I can do your video editing. So how does someone even choose which one they're going to do? Would you say they just go in and start playing with it until they find one that kind of hits the mark? Or, how do you choose? Because once you adopt something and you go in there, you're kind of stuck, aren't you? Even though it's free to use to start with, somehow you've got to adopt it into your organization.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a catch-22 for a lot of companies. I would say right now, because there's so much opportunity, this is why you see an explosion of people basically trying to solve these problems. It's a new technology, it's a new set of capabilities, and this is what you want in a thriving entrepreneurial system. You want people to try to go out there and fill that gap. But what's interesting about AI is like HubSpot, we talk a lot about applied AI. We're not like a OpenAI or an Anthropic or even a Google where we're out there trying to invent the frontier of AI. What we're trying to do is take what these companies have done and then we want to apply it to the problems that our customers have. The reason why that's kind of interesting is that when you take anything they've done and apply it to a specific domain, kind of a small something like video editing, it's actually not that hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it's when you apply it there, that's why you see 50 startups all doing a particular flavor of this is because the bar to build a AI tool is not that hard. What you do see though is that if you're a company looking to do this, you've got kind of 2 ways to split your brain. Well, first, you can sit on the sidelines and watch everybody else go figure it out. That's tough because I always love that phrase that I come from, have an entrepreneurial background, and I love that phrase that says, "In some garage, there's an entrepreneur forging a bullet with your name on it." Like at the end of the day, what you know is that competition is fierce, and if you don't want to keep up, it's gonna be a detriment to your business. So now you get up and you decide to get in there and start using it. Picking one of the tools, I would split it into 2 paths. It may not be the tool you stay married to over a long period of time, and so that's just the price of the particular time that we're in right now. You sign up, you learn, you use it, but there is a benefit, which is there are more long-term learnings that you get from this. And you know this, probably both of you guys from using AI. You learn how to interact with AI. You learn how to bring data or context to AI. You learn that like the hype of it doing all the work is kind of a smoke and mirrors. It doesn't work. You have to put a different set of type of work into making the AI outputs really good. And those are all durable learning. So when you switch from that tool to another tool, for example, you take those with you. And so this transformation that we encourage people to go through is 2 parts. Yes, you have to transform the tools you use, but those are a bit ephemeral. They'll swap out over time. HubSpot wants to be a part of that over some period of time. but the learnings you actually get on how to be AI first in your thinking, your approach, and all that stuff, those are a little bit more durable. And so I can't answer which of the 50 tools to use. I'd say do a little bit of research on it, but I would say don't get too stressed out over it. Don't sign a 3-year contract, but on the flip side, get out there and realize you might have to swap some out.
Yeah, cool. That definitely feels like there's been a shift within the business world of moving from this AI fear, if you will, to more businesses willing to give it a go. So, Nicholas, in your opinion, what do you think was the biggest turning point from businesses moving from this mentality of AI fear to AI confidence?
Well, you've got a couple of things that happen. So first, I tend to think that familiarity breeds rapport. So just being around these tools, being exposed to them in the media, that brings familiarity, and people start to develop a rapport. Like you kind of know what ChatGPT is, you know what Gemini is, you know what Claude is. Then secondarily, I think that basically data and security was a huge issue. And so that's been something across the whole industry that everybody has stood up and taken real notice of. So, for example, at HubSpot, security is something that when our customers come to us, it's not a sell me on security or make me feel better. It is an absolute hardline expectation. Don't use my data. Don't sell my data. Don't train on my data. Like, I want to know that all of these things are table stakes before I even give your AI a shot. And I think that bar has kind of moved up where a lot of people expect that. The other part that's interesting is, going back to like the shadow IT, there is a phenomenon happening, which is you see all of this innovation happening and you're stuck. What do you do as an entrepreneur? Sit on the sidelines as a business owner and let the technology pass you by? No, you got to get out there and start getting dusty on the battlefield. And that's an example where I think people are saying, okay, I don't have to be an early adopter. If I'm too slow, I'll end up being a laggard. And I think that's also something that's moving along. So more security, pressure from competition, more familiarity. I think that's why people are starting to get out there and do it now.
Yeah, awesome. So let's talk about HubSpot. How has HubSpot started to bring AI as an opportunity to customers? Obviously, there was a massive release of stuff that inbound last year. We weren't there, but I am coming this year. I've already booked my tickets to San Fran, so I'm gonna hunt you down, Nicholas, over there. All right, we're gonna catch up
Yeah.
for a beer. But how is HubSpot moving forward? Because obviously it's been a big game changer for you guys to actually release what you did last year. What's the plans moving forward?
Yeah, so the capabilities of AI are pretty vast. There's a lot of stuff you can do with it. But what HubSpot has always wanted to be is like the champion for the small and medium business. And one of the things that's been fascinating is that when we talk to a lot of SMBs, they are here to put food on the table for their employees, for their families. Like they don't have huge budgets to go take a lot of moonshots on things that may not work out. And what this means is that they're quite sensitive to hype. Like don't oversell me, man. Like I really only have a few shots on goal. Please make them worthwhile. And then two, what they have is they're not here to kind of like go play with technology. They need to put stuff in there that starts adding value. So with us, when we first started AI like 3 years ago, it was really like an exploratory mode. We were just taking stuff off the shelf, like OpenAI's, like GPT-3, and starting to put it into tools, and the quality was not there. It was neat. I always talk about this transition from neat to necessary. It was very neat. And then 2 years ago, what we did was he said, okay, the models have gotten better. Let's update that. Let's try a little bit more. Let's figure out if we can get a little bit higher quality stuff out of there. And so we started putting in more capabilities like image generation. Now we're doing text generation. But the funny thing is that still, even then, it didn't sound like your brand. It still made these weird 6-finger monstrosities and had text that looked like it was from Blade Runner. Like the images didn't look good. The text wasn't good. Whenever you were trying to use it in generating sales emails, they were about, it was, I called it like anti-personalization. It was about as robotic sounding as you could kind of get to. It was like, so all of it was like, wow, the AI is not basically incomprehensible, but it is not good. So what this last year, we started to get real serious on a couple of things. We said, AI, if it's going to do something where it's going to help these SMBs, it has to move towards necessary. So let's do a couple of things. First, let's go ahead and have some real opinions on what does it look like to be an AI first small and medium business. And we came away with kind of three things. We said, first, we think every employee needs an AI assistant. So we create something called Copilot. Second, we think that over time, small, especially marketers that you brought up, Mel, like marketers are being asked to do more and more with the same or less budgets. And so we think they're going to need to gain leverage on their teams. So they need some digital workers. That's where we started with agents that you can hire and put on your team. And then last, we think that no matter what all the pundits say, that, agents will rule the world and SaaS software is dead. For the SMBs we talk to, somebody still got to log in the morning, still got to click on software, still got to actually get work done. And so we feel like the smart CRM should have a bunch of AI seamlessly inside of it that makes you more efficient and more effective. And so if you have those three things, you got a co-pilot that helps you, you've got workers that extend your leverage, and then you've got the software that you touch day in and day out has AI through it. That's something that an SMB can get their head wrapped around. And if we do that by bringing all their data together, not just structured, that's like all CRMs, add in the name, add in the last name, add in the title, but then unstructured as well. Gartner has a number out there that they think 80% of all the data a business creates is actually unstructured. Email, call recordings, meeting recordings, tickets, chats. If you grab all of that and you bring that together, well, then that's what kind of HubSpot's vision is that you have those three opinionated experiences on top of this kind of unified data layer of structured and unstructured. And then you turn around twice, and as an SMB, you have your data game on point. You've got your employees now AI first. You've got your teams gaining leverage, and the software that you use is basically helping you day in and day out. It's pretty fast. You can turn into an AI first company within, a very short amount of time.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic how you've embraced that, from, because we always talk about here at Sword and Stone about the strategy aspect. And you mentioned this earlier on as well about how you've got to have a game plan. You've got to have that strategy. You've got to have that playbook, because I always go back to the young boy going into the lolly shop, and it's kind of like it's all shiny and it's all nice and tasty, and you just start grabbing stuff and then you get sick, right? Because you haven't got a plan. Sword and Stone, we have a bit of a saying around AI sandwich, as we call it, talking about eating.
We like to try and use AI obviously responsibly. We employ what we call the AI sandwich. So the human, the AI, and the human. The idea is the human's feeding the AI. The AI is either an agent and streamlining productivity or coming up with creativity. But anything that's outputted is vetted by a human. It's accurate. It's ethical. It's implemented in a way that kind of makes sense. Really, that's everything we do, whether it just be like within HubSpot itself or other AI tools. So question for you, Nicholas. How does HubSpot balance AI-driven data automation with maintaining the human element in sales and marketing?
Yeah, there's a bunch of companies that are out there that are really catering to kind of the enterprise, the large, the upmarket customers. And when I first took over this role, I didn't really like, honestly, the narrative that some of the companies were taking out there. It was very much bottom line driven, ROI, high profit margins. You don't need as many humans, and I just didn't like that, frankly. I come from a small business myself. I was an entrepreneur. My family was all small business people. And, to me, that whole talk track, that doesn't resonate. That's a big company problem. And I really wish those companies well. And there's going to be vendors out there that really help them, I guess, improve that bottom line. For me, what I like is that at the end of the day, it takes a lot of courage to go start a business. It takes a lot of energy to scale that business. And then a lot of those small businesses have long life cycles that effectively you're trying to stay on top of the heap as long as you can. The reason why I bring all that up is because what I care about is like technology unto itself is kind of it's not inspiring. It's what technology does for the humans that really makes it inspiring, in my opinion. So at least since I've been in role, everything we do puts the human at the center. So we want the employees to have AI superpowers. That's why we give them the assistant. We want the teams to gain the leverage that they need, not because they're trying to get rid of people, but because there's so much work to do. There's like infinite work, more work than you can handle. In fact, one of the things I talk to marketers about, a lot of times they'll ask me questions about this. Am I going to lose my job and all that stuff? And I say, let's have a real talk. When you create a piece of content, how much time do you spend on heavily researching it? How much time do you often go get unique data that no one else has? How much time do you go out there and actually vet it against a small cohort of your audience to know if they like it? And they're like, I don't do any of that. And I'm like, that's right, you don't. Those are all things that you needed to do for really high quality content, but you didn't have time because it took you 8 hours just to grind out a single blog post, and you're just trying to get it on that, that content train. That's what I think is going to have to start changing, is that it makes the humans have more time for creativity, insights, for collaboration, for doing that deeper strategic work. That's going to be pretty awesome. And so we do that in almost everything that we do. Humans are involved the whole way through. There's lots of ways that humans are basically consulted. There's lots of ways where now, I don't know if you guys want to talk about it, but we let the humans actually curate what's coming out in terms of their voice, in terms of the guardrails. So at the end of the day, everything we do is human centric and very much about empowering the marketing, sales, and service people that we work with. And we've always worked with the frontline people. That's also different. We're not, yes, we want the sales managers happy, and yes, we want the CEOs happy. But at the end of the day, it's about empowering the frontline teams. That's who we think are the real winners here.
And you know what? I think the frontline teams are probably the main thing. I've just spent the whole weekend on the phone to humans from our airline here called Qantas, trying to solve something. I got told something completely different at the start around the promotion they're offering to the end after 4 calls. Now, I go back to an interview you did back in 2023 where you did this with the Agile Brand podcast. You've probably done loads of podcasts, Nicholas, but this one was one that I shared with the team because I thought it was really good. This was obviously after 2023 when you were really starting to get all this AI stuff happening and how it's grown since then. But you used an example where you said the world's moving to a point where if you get offered the idea of, do you want to speak to an AI agent right now, or do you want to wait 10 minutes and speak to an actual human? I think before we probably want to speak to a human if it was a chatbot was the option, but now an AI agent that has the same data that can solve my issue quicker, I think is going to move people forward. I think 85% of enterprises are now using it for that kind of process. Customer satisfaction, which is where I'm really going with this, over 50% of consumers like myself would prefer an interaction with an AI agent that can solve my problem there and then. Do you still think this? You said this back in 2023. Do you think that's still going in that direction?
Yeah, there are a couple of things that I think are happening. So first, I think you know, you basically think about, there's two diametrically opposed things happening with companies and their support. It's like all their energy is going into sales and marketing because they want net new business. And by and large, not all, but a ton of customers basically that we see really shortchange the service side, because if they haven't really clarified how loyal customers drive more of that flywheel or more people coming back in, then they see it as an expense. And so when you see it as an expense, you often approach the employees that you hire that way as an expense. You drive their KPIs as an expense. And what that all comes down to is you just don't get that kind of excellence in that zone often. Now, there are some businesses that do a great job there, but by and large, a lot of people basically treat that as like a cost of doing business. It's not where I flourish. It's not the excellence part of my business. What's interesting about like the AI support stuff, like our customer agent right now, for about 15 minutes of work, this is roughly what we're at, about 15 minutes of work, you get about 50% resolution of tier 1 support issues. Tier 1, for anybody listening right now, is like, what are your hours of operation? And does this product, require this particular thing? Or tell me a little bit about your terms of service. That's like all tier 1 stuff. And the reality is that if you treat the service as like a cost center, then you have higher turnover of employees. You spend less time training them. So they're like ill prepared. They don't stay as long, not as much tenure. And yet the customer still needs help. And so that's an area where two things can win at the same time, which is AI gets better because you're missing a data piece. You just write a knowledge-based article, and now every single time it's good. Number two, let's say that the agent can't handle it. So now you give it to somebody who's like a tier 2 support, and you're able to compensate them better because they're dealing with harder issues. You're able to effectively let them have higher tenure. They go deeper on the harder issues. Everything is a great win-win there. So the customers, 50% of them get a great experience, and the 50% who don't get escalated to somebody who's much more apt to help them. That's kind of what we're looking at here. And I think that's why a lot of people are so excited about like the customer support AI side. And at the end of the day, a lot of us, we may have hard problems, like the Qantas may be hard, but like for me, I had a problem on my recent spring break last week that literally, I could have answered, but I was on like the phone call and it's like, press 1 if you want this. Like, I would love to go to a chat bot and be like, hey, at the end of the day, this is what we were looking for when we were in Turks and Caicos. What is the 1-800 number? And I wish it would have given it to me, but I couldn't get it. So I had to wait till I flew back to the States.
It's wild. It's amazing how the right adoption of agents can provide like a better customer experience, but more efficiently. Like the last thing people want to be doing is hanging around, pressing 1, waiting for the prompts, and your question might not even be in a prompt, right? So
And it also pisses you off. It's like, do you want to talk to a bot or a
Mm.
human? Because right now our experience with a bot is, here are 4 chiclets, click 1. And you're like,
Yeah.
my problem's not one of those 4. Like, what do I do?
Yeah, don't
So
put
you
me in
have
a
to
box.
constantly get,
Yeah.
0, agent, 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 agent. Like, but at the end of the day, if you can actually have a conversation with one that has, 100, 500, 1,000 knowledge base articles behind it to help it, it has access to change your password or look up your order. Like, man, that is awesome.
Yeah, I think we've gone past the time now where it's like you're talking to someone on the phone there or something, and they can't answer your question, so they transfer you to somebody else, and then you go through the whole thing again. They say, no, actually, I've got to transfer you to someone else. Let's speak to one AI agent that can answer everything because they got access to all the data.
I had a customer service inquiry and think I got to person number 4. And then when I said to them, hey, you're person number 4, here's my very simple question. And they said, I can't believe you've been transferred 4 times. I said,
Or the crazy thing is, have you ever done this? This is where an agent also works out really well. Have you ever said, "Can I just pause for a second? Can you just read my notes?"
yeah, yes, absolutely. Or I've just
They're
spent half an hour telling 4 other people this. Can you just answer my
Please
really
Yeah.
simple
But then
question?
you got to really hope that someone took the right notes. That's
Yeah.
where AI does really well. And then second, you always hear the person like, "Okay, Mel, give me 1 second." No,
Is
no,
this
no,
correct?
no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
no.
Is
mumbling
this
every-
correct? I'm reading this. Is this correct? No, I wouldn't have said it
Yes,
2 minutes
Yeah.
ago if
exactly.
it wasn't
And,
factual. Yeah.
and then after all that bad experience, it says, no, please hang on the line and complete our survey about how we did today.
I know.
I'd love to.
My favorite though is being also like going back to this, and I know everybody here on the call has had this. My favorite thing is like, please fill in your account ID, your credit card number, and then someone gets on the phone. Psh, how about Mel? Can you go ahead and verify your credit card number? And you're like, the heck did I just give to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a call the other day and someone's like, oh, great. So you want to sign up to whatever they were buying? I was like, absolutely. I said, can we start with your first name? You called me. Can we start with your phone number? You called me.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
Hi,
this is
I'm Nicholas.
yeah. Well, this is where we talk about how AI and the human kind of crosses over in a certain way with the lovely word avatar. Now, I got you on this show, I think, because I sent you Tony AI as an invitation instead of me calling you up, which I think if you remember. So I've been playing around with this avatar stuff for a while. Talking of choosing the right one, it was Synthesia I played with, and then HeyGen, and I was so happy when Inbound you released the fact that HeyGen was going to be a connection. So you obviously been playing around with the same one, but what about the thing I'm playing with now is a thing called interactive, or I'm calling it interactive Tony AI. So I'm going to put a link in with this podcast where you can actually go and have a look at having a difficult conversation. So I'm going to share it with Mel as well because she's the regional director, has difficult conversations all the time. But Tony AI will actually have a conversation with you and role play a difficult situation that you may have to have with an employee.
Fantastic, because I often have to have the difficult conversations with you. So I can
Well,
role play
yeah.
with your AI
That's
and
right.
hopefully it's got a bit of Tony in it and it'll
Yeah.
anticipate the objections.
Yeah, as long as the real Tony behaves after that and listens to the Tony AI version. But the idea is, where do you think avatars are going, Nicholas? Have you played around with Avatar? Is there a Nicholas AI floating around out there?
There is the team. Well, first off, let me back up. When you say avatars, one of the things I think is helpful for this is that the reality is that you have a couple of things that go into an avatar. You have a body of knowledge that Nicholas has that could come from chat transcripts like this podcast or emails or things like that. That is trying to capture what I would call like training data for like what Nicholas cares about. Then you have the tone. This is also interesting. Like I'm from the South here in the United States. I use metaphors a lot to tell a lot of long-winded stories that basically people are like, please get on with it. Like that's like my particular tone. And then you have, of course, the actual experience back and forth. And so that's where you get into channel. So it can be chat. That's if you were chatting with me. It can then be voice if we were on a phone call. And then, of course, it can be the last one, which is a live video interaction. And I think that a lot of times when people talk about avatar, they're all the way at the end. And that is probably the least developed tech. It's fascinating. It looks awesome, but it's the least developed technology of all of this. So to your point, I think over time, people will get better at collecting a corpus of their particular data and they will use it in different ways. So like right now, my marketing team, they take all of these podcasts, they take a lot of when I give public speaking, they will download all of that and they have created a voice in Anthropic, Claude. You can create voices pretty easily. They'll create a voice that sounds like me. And then over time, they've also created all these transcripts that they'll put into something like a Notebook LM. and they will ask it questions to say, how would Nicholas answer this? So it'll give a very, very technical answer, but then they'll go put it in Anthropic to get the right voice. And now they can go put out a piece of content, for example. So that's, when you talk about avatars, is my voice part of my avatar in Anthropic? Is my knowledge part of my avatar inside of Notebook LM? Or at the end of the day, is it the HeyGen piece that is getting quite good for the record? But like, is it that effectively captures my likeness and my voice? I really think you're going to over time have to have all of these come together to kind of appropriately capture that. And you'll utilize them in different ways, but like that's kind of my opening thoughts on avatars.
Yeah. No, that's good. I think when I did my created my Tony AI, and it's developed over the years because obviously before it was very still and stiff, and then it's got a bit more animated now. But
My name is Tony.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was like, this is totally an avatar, Tony. Stop rolling it out. Yeah,
And they
absolutely.
said, don't move, or you blur it up. But now it's got walking, talking. Like I think the one I sent you, you can walk through I live up in the Blue Mountains, and I'm walking in my garden chatting away, and you just give 2 minutes of video, and then it creates it. But I remember the team saying to me, it's not as animated as you, it's not as alive as you. And I said, well, that's good. Because if it was exactly me, then why am I here? Like it's good, and we have a play around with it. So I'll send him. So I'm finding use cases for Tony AI. The interesting thing is, I only just started to play with this because you're right, Nicholas. It's still developing, but of course our job is to be ahead of the game just to see what's going on. But I started to play around with doing a Zoom meeting with myself. How weird is that when Tony AI joins me on a Zoom meeting and we can have a conversation? That's probably down the track, but
Yeah, I'm convinced.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We
I'm-
did an experiment recently where we made a avatar named Fiona. We did feed it a ton of knowledge about all of our product stuff. So we went through and got a ton of training data. For everybody listening, just think of it as like knowledge-based articles. So we grabbed like 100 knowledge-based articles. And then we did capture through something like a HeyGen, a voice and a video profile. And then we put it on basically the ability to have interaction like through a Zoom call or a live chat. So, you've got a bunch of things going on there. And there are a bunch of applications that we found. So first off, there's a whole range of etiquette around this. If I try to trick you, boy, you'll be pissed. And I think that's interesting because if you're chatting with someone online and you think it's a real person, and it turns out to be a bot, that feels like a violation of trust. But if you tell somebody up front, hey, you got 10 minutes to go wait for Nicholas, or you can go talk to basically, this agent right now, a lot of people will choose the faster one because what do they have to lose? On the agent side, like Tony, when you said, hey, this is Tony, you're my agent, like what you're clearly doing is you're saying, I acknowledge that this is not me. I'm doing something fun and interesting. And then I listen to the rest of your message. And so you establish that trust in the beginning. You kind of had a good etiquette protocol. And then we were able to kind of move on to the meat of that conversation. That's the kind of stuff that we're going to have to figure out right now. And so when you bring, right now, what we're trying to test is like if you bring an avatar in on a sales call and I say, hey, this is an agent, Fiona. She's going to help us from a solution engineering standpoint. Like she knows all the technical stuff. And then if at the same, and we're testing this out, if someone goes, hey man, are you guys, SOX compliant? He can say, it's a new rep. He can go, I don't know, Fiona, are we SOX compliant? And she'd be like, absolutely, here we are. This is all of our security stuff, and that's helpful. And so I think we're seeing that people will accept that agent in a human to human conversation. They will accept the knowledge there. What we're seeing now is like the technology is not quite there where the latency is still too high. So if you say, hey, Fiona, are we SOX compliant? And they go,
Yeah. It's absolutely this idea of authenticity, right? Being upfront. We rolled out Tony AI for a bunch of marketing videos, and I just wanted some really short, sharp content to go out on LinkedIn. And Tony said, "Oh, I'll get Tony AI out there." And it's just really interesting and that's the message really when we talk about it with clients. You've got to be authentic. You've got to be upfront that this is artificial intelligence. It is not a person. We often get asked by clients, agents versus avatars. Like, when's the right time to use one over the other?
they're different, really. This is a challenging topic for the record. I was literally arguing about this today inside the company. The way we're defining an agent is effectively when you have some sort of AI powered, specifically through LLMs right now, some sort of AI powered entity that is completing a job to be done, that's an agent. So this allows right now for everybody listening, this starts to give you a lot of like elbow room and freedom that an agent doesn't have to look like an avatar. It doesn't have to be a chat agent. That effectively, it's an AI powered element that can complete a job to be done. So when you get into that, now you realize that a lot of the industry leaders are seeing agents along a spectrum. You have a very simple tool agent. So it might be something like apply my brand voice to this, and it does it automatically. You can call it through workflows or click a button or whatever. It's just a very simple thing that says apply this brand voice to this particular body of knowledge. Like that's like a tool based, like we call it a skill inside of HubSpot. Then you move on to you can string together a series of these things. That's a very simple agent. Could be kind of doing 2 or 3 different tasks to get that done. So you could say something like generate some ideas, write me a draft, apply my brand voice, and now give me that, that's like a blog. That would be like a little blog, simple blog agent. Then you get to the point where now these are kind of coming up soon. You have the ability to have kind of like workflow agents. This gets more complex, but it's like first do this, then do one of the things I just talked about. Based off that output, now do this. And so you start to think about like the workflows tool with a bunch of different little AI entities in there. So, people now are doing really cool things like if a form is submitted, it's like doing its auto classification or auto kind of tagging of data. And then based off where it's tagged, it's kicking it down sequences. And then based off their response, it's doing other stuff. And then the last part you have that's getting kind of wild out there is what they kind of call non-deterministic agents, kind of a fancy name. But like imagine if you went to an agent and you said, listen, I'm going to give you access to my email. I'm going to give you access to my calendar. I'm going to give you access to my chat. So these are like, what would you call 3 tools? I'm going to give you access to those. You've got knowledge. You know how Nicholas basically responds and thinks. And I'm going to give you a set of instructions for basically anything that comes in that seems like it's low critical. Go ahead and answer. If it's high critical, then basically, if you don't mind, put it in a queue and I'll get to it myself. That's a non-deterministic because now it gets to decide across all of your tools what it wants to do. It gets to decide at what point does it escalate and all that stuff. That's coming. That's what we're working on now, those non-deterministic agents. All of those are agents before we even get into how they interact. Chat, voice, video. So it gets a little like mind numbing for people who are brand new to AI. But when you start to break it down into its pieces, you start to kind of see you got like a little AI primitive called a skill. You string together a bunch of them now, or a bunch of them becomes like a little bitty of a tool based agent. Then at the end of the day, you can move all the way up to these orchestrator agents. And then of course you can start to interact with them with chat based agents and things like that. That was a lot, but hopefully that's helpful.
No, it's good. I love to look into the crystal ball of the mind of Nicholas Holland and what's going on in there. But let's go back.
Is that like mind blowing, or is that what you guys are seeing with your customers?
Not so much with our customers, I think, but certainly we're looking at that, I think, in terms of stuff. But I was just going to bring it back to the start because you just highlighted then, like we've taken people on that roller coaster, if you like, of everything. But let's go back to some of the basics. A lot of people are starting using AI by ChatGPT. So one of the things we've taken further with ChatGPT is actually created our own private sorted stone agency version of ChatGPT, and we've taught it, added, similar to what you were saying there, added all the data into it, and then it now can help us develop sales and marketing strategies. It can summarize calls, provide actionable notes, answering questions about HubSpot, writing scopes of work, all of that kind of stuff, which, to your point, Nicholas, were the mundane stuff that used to take up our time. We're still controlling it. Yeah. But it's working. How would you suggest people off the back of this, even if they're only on ChatGPT and they don't want to dive any deeper right now, what could they do with ChatGPT that's just a little bit more deeper, I suppose, from an AI principle rather than just asking
one-to-one questions.
Yeah, from a prompt standpoint.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things that we've been sharing recently. One of the interesting hacks is a lot of people don't use the live voice of ChatGPT very much. I think you have to be a paid, maybe not, maybe they made it in free, but one of the things that's really helpful is you actually begin to work through a series of kind of AI interactions to get to where you want to end up. The way this commonly works now is you will open up on your mobile device or your desktop device. You'll press the audio, the live voice, if you haven't done that, and you'll just simply say, I'd like to have a conversation. I want to bounce some ideas off of you. And what you do is you just go back and forth. Those models are already trained to kind of elicit more information out of you. You can talk about refinancing your house, or you can talk about an artifact that you have to make it work, or you're going for a promotion, or all that stuff. That's all very common. So that's one. If people don't do that, they should do that. And I also encourage people to do it in the car. I know it's kind of weird, but like while you're driving, it's a great time. Instead of listening to a podcast, like get some of the stuff off your chest. And what's really nice is that a couple of things are fascinating. At the end of all those conversations, I'll say, would you mind putting together a summary of everything we've talked about? So there's two things now that have come out of this one chat thread. First, I can actually go capture all of my thoughts because when you talk to them, it transcribes all of them. A lot of people don't know this. It captures all of your thoughts in text. And then second, it gives you a summary of like kind of what you guys agreed with. Those two things can become artifacts that you use in something else. So when it's ready the next day to write that the job promotion or your personal review, or you're trying to effectively put out an artifact for your customer, all of that now you can say, here are all my thoughts. Here's the summary of what we came away with. Now, will you create something for me? So that kind of technique is like really good by helping you, distilling your thoughts and ideas, having a strategic partner, getting it out to a couple of summarized artifacts, and then it lets you take things to the next level. That's like one idea that a lot of people are finding to be very valuable, and it seems simple, but it's also quite advanced when you start using it. And then the last part is whether you're using Gemini or Claude or all these things, like starting to group these concepts together, files, chats, things like that, into a place called like a project that now also gives the AI more context. So for me, as an example, I'm always having to like write about HubSpot's AI strategy. So I take every like artifact or memo that I've written and I put it inside of a chat GPT project. Every thread where I'm going back and forth, I put it into that project. I give it instructions. Hey, I'm Nicholas, SVP at HubSpot, trying to write together strategy. And that project now, anytime I go in there and I say, we've got, this company just came out. How should I think about this? It already gives me a lot of that stuff. So those are like some ideas.
Amazing. It's like you're taking the idea of, as humans, we like to have conversations, bounceable ideation, but you're applying it to an even more a wealth of knowledge source being ChatGPT.
Although I wouldn't like to be ChatGPT when you decide to download your day at Sorted Stone, and
No, I might
although
have some
your husband
therapy.
will be happy about it, I
Yeah,
think, so he doesn't have to listen to it. ChatGPT could take up all the
absolutely.
slack.
I think I'll schedule a therapy session on the way home
How much
to
do you think my wife wants to hear about AI? She's a lawyer. She does not.
Oh, lawyers, yeah. But she's
Yeah,
going to be asking the questions around the
she
the railroads
yeah
and the guardrails and
she just needs
Exactly.
she just needs to create an avatar, Nicholas, so you can just talk to that when you get home.
No doubt. No doubt.
Right. Well, we're going to do a little section that we do on this podcast, and we ask each of the guests to come up with something interesting, a tool they've been using, or maybe a HubSpot feature or whatever. So we've put Nicholas and Mel on the spot. I've got one to share too. So this is a segment we call. So it is, of course, the Toolkit segment, and I'm going to start first with this one that I've been playing with. I think it's rather good. It's called Lately.ai. Nicholas, have you heard of that one? Played around with that
I
one?
have
Oh,
not.
good. Oh, one you haven't found. That's good. So what I like about we get often asked about social media. Like everybody has to, you still got to get your brand out on social media. HubSpot has a wonderful array of tools that you can use within HubSpot, including a social media agent. But lately, AI goes a little step further. It analyzes your social media analytics. It identifies your high performing patterns of words, ideas, and grammar. And then it creates, similar to what Nicholas was saying before, it creates a voice model, a brand voice model, which actually replicates and amplifies your own brand voice. Now you can actually input things like long form text, you can put video, audio files, and your voice model will actually start to take the top highlights pre-assembled into ideal social media messaging. So that the time we used to have to say, oh, I've got to put some social media together now, this will do it for you. Each voice model learns from human guidance and collaboration, hence the human AI human aspect of it. And then you can schedule posts on 5 platforms on Starter at just $14 a month. So for $14, worth having a play if you're struggling with trying to put social media out there and making it relevant, making it engaging. It's called Lately.ai.
Nice.
Nicholas, what have you got for us in your toolkit today?
So I like to take notes during meetings. I use sometimes a remarkable pad that I write on, but my favorite is I use an open source tool called Obsidian. And nobody here on this call should go get Obsidian. It's like you have to like a pain in the rear to deal with. But it's an open source knowledge management graph that effectively connects all of your ideas and thoughts together and all that stuff. The deal is that taking notes while you're in a meeting can be challenging sometimes. And so there's a tool that's making its way through HubSpot that's actually pretty cool. It's called Granola granola.ai. You run it on your own laptop. And so while you're having a Zoom meeting or a gong call, like a call with somebody, et cetera, it's in the background and it's listening, it's like listening in the ambient air around here. And so you're typing notes, but it also knows that you want to type notes. And so what it does is while you're typing notes, it's also augmenting the notes with you. And so it's like a super note taker is all of it. And like you'd have to kind of try it to understand what I'm talking about. But if you and I go through a call together, sales call, could be a work call, whatever, and I'm typing notes, it will take my notes plus everything that it heard and it will flesh it all out into like a beautiful summary and notes and all that stuff. It's like a tiny, like little utility, but very, very helpful.
Oh, awesome. And is it granola.ai? Is that the
Granola.ai.
Absolutely one I'm definitely going to check out after
Yeah, I
this. I
know.
love it. I love a
over your
note.
breakfast in the
Yeah.
morning?
Absolutely.
Mel, what have you got?
I have been playing in Dinesh's world of agent.ai. For those of you that haven't visited the website, I absolutely implore you to head on over. There's over 1,000 agents. In particular, one I've been playing with in the past couple of weeks is the ideal customer profile. At Salted Stone, we're a global business. We've got a global HubSpot account. Often it can be quite interesting to try and find your ideal customer profile for APAC. There's a lot of opinions from salespeople or client service teams as to who we should be kind of servicing and buying the products. Just taking that agent, applying it to people that have actually bought the product, working through the agent was really quick. In a matter of minutes, I had a factual answer as to who we actually should be talking to and who are the customers that are actually buying our product. Who are they? What do the size look like? What kind of products they're looking after? So, I mean, that was just a really simple matter of minutes agent that is I've been able to employ for us, and it's a really impactful, factual piece of information for Salted Stone.
Yeah, we find we've been talking to the wrong people for the last 10 years. Thank you, AI. Always there to help. All right, we're going to let Nicholas go because I've just heard through my headphones that your birthday cake is just coming out the oven. So we do have to let you go. But final message from you, Nicholas and Mel, in terms of, how just a motivational piece. How do people get started? They're all inspired by everything we've covered. What should they do now to get that meaningful value from AI?
Yeah, the thing I tell people is that if you've done nothing with AI, right now there's so many tools are free out there. I would go to like a ChatGPT or a Claude. I actually go to Claude. I know it's like a little bit controversial. I think ChatGPT is smarter. But I think Claude is. I don't know. I just like it better, like in terms of like a conversational piece. So I use ChatGPT for a lot of my big thinking, but I use Claude for a lot of my empathetic type stuff. I think it's like one where you should go to Claude. And it's a little morbid. You know this, Tony, from one of my past podcasts. But I think that each person should write their own eulogy. And it's a little morbid, but it really comes down to like when you spend a little time doing something that matters, because you don't want it to suck. Obviously, it's your eulogy. But then number two, you need to go back and forth. And so you've got to put a little thought into it. And you have to work with one of these agents back and forth, these chat agents, especially like with Claude. It's like really empathetic. I think it's great because it helps you, it's like a great kind of spiritual thing, put into perspective what's important to you. Two, you get to go work with something that basically is like a modern AI tool. And three, you're putting out an artifact where you can see, it's like the thing I always say with AI. AI is quite good, but you then quickly realize just how big the gap is to put out something that's really like great for the customer. And so you see where the human has quite a bit of role to play there. That's what I would do.
Awesome.
Exciting.
Mel, final thoughts.
Me, probably around efficiency. So everybody has a to-do list of things you've got to get done. Take one or two of the smaller things that are necessary, but not necessarily a great use of your time. Work out for, ChatGPT or an AI tool, how you can try and get around that faster and just challenge the output. Often you'll find it's like what you would have done on steroids. They've taken extra knowledge, extra time, extra efficiency. Just give it a go. One or two small things off the list and it'll start to like bring the ideas and everything will start to strum as to how you can implement AI and tools within your day-to-day.
Beautiful. Well, I'm going to conclude with a link that's going to be in here as well about the responsible adoption of AI, putting my responsibility hat, which you don't see very often,
Occasionally.
Mel, but it is there somewhere. We'll include that link to a blog post that we wrote about how Salted Stone uses and doesn't use AI, because AI is there, but it's not for everything. So check that out on the link below. If you've missed an episode of HubSpot, you can, sorry, not of HubSpot, because this is HubSpot, but of Under the Hood, where we go under the hood of a lot of HubSpot stuff. You can find it on the website. Also linked below, so you can make sure you subscribe to future episodes. And also, if you've missed any, this is Series 4. Where have you been? You can see some of the other episodes that are there. But I want to say a massive thank you to the wonderful Nicholas Holland, the man of AI and everything else in between, certainly HubSpot in there as well. Have a happy birthday, and thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Mal. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And I'm going to leave you with one quote before you guys go. This is from a guy by the name of Lucas Risotto, who says, AI won't replace humans if that's what you're worried about, but humans using AI will replace humans who don't. We'll see you next time.